Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here on Eat Sleep Reef. And this week I'm actually going to be covering not my tank, as you can see. I really wish it was, but it's not. This week we're actually going to be featuring a fellow reefer from Instagram, Space Reef. Now this tank I came across probably about a month ago. I remember it was one of the other reefers I follow. He featured him and pretty much stating, hey, if you aren't following this guy, be sure to check him out. And his tank very quickly caught my attention. There's always something about having a nice small tank, right? But there's a whole nother element. I mean, we all know a small tank, they're not the easiest to keep. I'm not saying they're impossible, but they're pretty difficult, only because there's such little water volume. It's very hard to keep the water as pristine as you can or keep it consistent. So as soon as I saw this tank, I was immediately drawn to it. There was quite a few things, I was very quickly surprised to see what a small reef tank this was. Another thing I was very surprised to see was how much SPS was in this tank. A beautiful SPS pieces towards the top, an amazing zoa garden to the middle, and a very nice torch garden on the very bottom. So it was cool to see. It's something that really caught my attention, and as you probably would assume, I obviously started following him very quickly. So to share with you guys a little bit about this reef tank, it's owned by Ricardo Jaime. He lives in Monterrey, Mexico. It's just cool to see, so many tanks. I've featured some on my channel. Outside of the United States, there's a lot of reefers out there. It's crazy to see how big this community is. But, I'm not surprised. Being such a great hobby, great community, I'm not surprised it's something that's, worldwide. So Ricardo, again, he is from Monterrey, Mexico. And this is a 130 liter reef tank. It's been running for about a year and 3 months. It's a mixed reef, as you guys can see. There's a bunch of SPS, LPS, and a beautiful zoa garden. Now the display has been modified. I believe it was a Boyu MT550. The sump in the back, pretty much the filtration in the back, like my JBJ, was completely removed. They create drains to go to a custom acrylic sump. It's actually something I want to talk about. I've seen, not saying you can't do a small reef tank without a sump, but I've noticed a lot of very nice reef tanks. There is some exceptions, but I have seen a lot of people that have really nice small reef tanks do a sump. Now this is for various reasons. One of them, you get a little bit more water volume, but you're able to run better filtration on the bottom in a sump. Again, that's not to say that you can't do an all-in-one and you can't have it this nice. You absolutely could, but having a sump on the bottom not only gives you a little bit more water volume, it's a little bit more cushioning, but it also allows you to house better filtration. Now, one other very interesting thing, but yet I'm not surprised, he is using the Triton method, the Core 7. So he does have a refugium. He did mention he has 3 different types of macroalgae on the bottom. But again, I'm not surprised seeing the Triton method is able to achieve what you're able to see. Now, for you guys that aren't aware of the Triton method, you pretty much never do a water change ever unless a parameter is really out of whack. It either needs to be depleted or increased, whatever the case is. But typically speaking, a Triton method does not require any water changes whatsoever. The filtration is pretty interesting because you use no mechanical filtration at all, and the refugium in itself kind of becomes not only your mechanical filtration but also your nutrient export. So his feeding regimen is every 3 days with Polyp Lab and Acro Power. He uses a doser to dosat. I've heard actually good results with both of these. As you guys know, I love a Polyp Lab. Reefroids, Acropower, I've never personally used, but I've seen a lot of guys using it with great success. As far as a reactor, he did mention he doesn't use any reactor, so nothing for carbon, nothing for GFO. One interesting thing as well, he does do ICP test every 3 months. Again, that's kind of a requirement for Triton method in order to keep your water pristine and make sure that all the levels are being held at the right level. You're kind of recommended to do your ICP test. Now it's very cool he does it every 3 months. It gives him a closer look at exactly what his water chemistry is doing. As far as equipment's concerned, he's running the IceCap K2 750 skimmer, 2 Radion XR30 blue. Now he is, sorry, blue with the G5. He is running the SPS AB Plus program at 50%. Again, I'm not surprised. Such a beautiful tank running the Radions. For flow, he's running MP10. He does have a Vortec battery backup. And again, I'm not surprised to see him with the GHL Mega Profilux system, as well as a GHL 2.1 doser to dose his Triton method. And it was very cool to get a glimpse in his parameters. After looking at his parameters, it's very obvious that, again, he maintains them very consistently, and it's something that's pretty close to seawater. Now, being the Triton method, they do a great job of trying to maintain those levels, starting off with salinity 1.025, temperature 25 degrees Celsius, calcium 430, KH 8.2, magnesium 1390, PO4 0.03, NO3 0.2, it's very low, and very cool to see the pH at 8.2. I always see a direct correlation with higher pHs, obviously consistency and lighting being very important, but higher pHs doing very good, especially when it comes to Acropora. Now when it comes to his livestock, he has 2 Ocellaris clowns, 2 damsel, 1 fire goby, 1 dragonet blenny, 2 scarlet cleaner shrimp, 1 cleaner shrimp, and 6 turbo snails. Now you're able to see he doesn't have a huge bioload. Even if he did add, a few more fish, I'm sure his refugium should be able to export it, considering he does maintain his levels pretty low. Now it's very cool to get a glimpse, guys, and see how many different ways we're able to achieve success. But more importantly, it was really nice to see him maintaining this beautiful tank with the Triton method. The Triton method is something that I'm currently using on my tank, and probably something I'm going to be using in the future as well. I've tried the calcium reactor, had great success on the JBJ, but the Triton method, it's a very cool method. It's very interesting. More importantly, it's no water changes ever. So you got to love that part about it. But one thing that I was quickly drawn to this Reef tank, again, starting to get into sticks myself, I really loved his assortment of SPS. I mean, the polyp extension, the colors, I don't know about you guys, but I would not be complaining if I had this tank. It's also very cool to see how he incorporated a beautiful Zoogarden in the middle. I've been a big believer of Zoogardens, as you guys remember, with my JBJ45. They just add a beautiful look, and once they're fully grown in, as you're seeing here, they just add a completely different look to the tank. Now it's very cool on the bottom to see his euphyllias, his torches. I see hammer, or I believe it's a hammer on the bottom, but the torches for sure, a great selection. Being such a small tank, you can see he's actually planned out to have, not all of them I would say high-end pieces, but very nice pieces. When you have such little real estate, it's very important that you only house, the nicest of the nice, because again, you don't have too much real estate. Now one thing that immediately caught my eye, and you guys probably saw a clip of this, was the bounce mushroom. And the clown just hosting that mushroom. It's absolutely beautiful shot. Not only the bounce mushroom itself is impressive, the size of it is impressive, but more importantly, the clown itself hosting it. So guys, I want to give a big shout out to Ricardo for allowing me to feature his tank. It's an absolute privilege to see such a beautiful Reef tank in such a small package. But again, guys, it just goes to show, no matter what you do, whether water changes, no water changes, Triton method, anything you do, as long as you're consistent with it, you should achieve very, very good results. So again, guys, I want to give Ricardo a big thank you, my man, for allowing me to feature your tank. If you guys are on Instagram, I highly urge you to check out Space Reef. If you do check him out, please, guys, give him a follow. Let him know you saw his video on YouTube, and just let him know how amazing his Reef tank is. I bet he already knows that. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I actually really enjoyed this video because, again, I could literally stare at this tank for hours on hours. If he was maybe a little bit closer, I wouldn't mind heading down to check it out. But being in Mexico, guys, I guess if I'm ever around there, I'd love to go see it in person. But guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I'd love to hear down in the comments below, what's your favorite part of this reef tank? What part of this reef tank would you love to take out and put in your home tank? Would it be the Zoa garden? Would it be the SPS beautiful colony on the top? The torch garden on the bottom? Or maybe that bounce mushroom? I'd love to hear it down in the comment box below. I thank each and every one of you very much for watching. As always, happy reefing.